Hello and welcome to Islamic Finance Weekly. I am Rahma Said Muhammad. So 2 weeks ago, we did an online analysis, an online survey of millennials and Gen Z's awareness level of Islamic finance or non-interest finance. And last week, we did a physical survey, that is Vox Pop, asking same millennials and Gen Z's of their awareness level of Islamic finance. And we realized that there is minimal sensitization and awareness of non-interest finance, which hinders, people's decision of actually adopting this method of finance or banking. And today we decided to bring in a professional to discuss and elaborate and enlighten you on what Islamic finance is and its offering. So joining me in the studio today is Halima Sulaiman, Business Relationship Manager of the Alternative Bank, to discuss fostering Islamic finance awareness. Hello, Halima. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rama. Pleased to be here with you.
Thank you. It's a delight having you again in the studio.
Thank you.
From the survey or the analysis we had, we realized that people have minimal awareness of Islamic finance. I don't know if it's not loud enough, or people, or the stakeholders, is that the stakeholders are not doing enough, or no, is there that there's other barriers to this. So I think I want us to start with your perception of people's understanding of Islamic finance thus far before we now delve into why do you think there is minimal awareness. So let's have the perception, what you think the perception of people is on Islamic finance.
Thank you, Rahama, once again. I would answer this question in three dynamics. That's the first one. I would share my work experience. The second, I would share a research that I read, but the research was focused on a social media platform, which was Twitter, which is the most interactive social media platform for viewers and the general public. And then the third, I would share, which is my day-to-day experience. So for the first one, I worked at a NIFA institution, and I was lucky to pioneer the social media unit, then as a business support analyst. And I would say that when we decided to adopt use of social media at the organization, then that was, I think, 2017. It was a very good outreach. It pushed the brand awareness. Customers were enlightened far and wide. We got calls from very far part of Nigeria when the company was in Lagos. So I would say that, yes, perception of non-interest finance, Islamic awareness is very low at the moment, but with adoption, with implementation of putting ourselves out there, it's becoming increasing, and it's boosting not just profitability and brand awareness, but business intelligence too.
Right.
The second one, I would respond using the research that I read recently. I'm trying to recall the name, yeah. And he used Twitter, because Twitter is just the good spot where everyone just sort of like do interactive section. You can interact. It goes very wide and far, which is now known as what's the word for Twitter now?
X.
X, thank you, which is now known as X. And he mentioned on Twitter that there were large sentiments. He used the market data analysis of 10 countries, which include Nigeria's only African country. And these countries were America, India, Canada, United Kingdom. But I could remember that Nigeria was the only African country and the last. And the sentiment was very high. I think the result was the neutral space was 57%. The negative comment was 17. Sorry, the positive comment was 17 and the negative comment was 24. But I would say that we should focus on the neutral and the negative. When we continue to enlighten people, we sort of like push the positive numbers up here. That's what awareness do, just neutralize the sentiment. Yeah. And the third one, which is my day-to-day, I was when I started this industry 5 years ago. It was really tough because when you go to meet customer, you have to talk about the industry. You have to tell them what to do. It was a whole lot. But now people are now getting aware of Islamic finance, of non-interest banks and other sectors in the industry. And you could just go there and sell your products and services, not normally like how we used to start all the way from the beginning. So I would say that with the use of social media, with the use of organization adopting social media, is getting better than where we were.
Thank you so much for you're giving us your three retrospect. So moving on, how can we use social media? How can social media to be utilized in fostering awareness, especially within the ecosystem of Islamic finance? How do you think people, stakeholders in the Islamic finance ecosystem, can utilize social media to sensitize people?
Thank you. With response to the previous retrospect that I had mentioned, we need to continue driving the use of social media. And there was this quote I read recently by Steve Jobs, and he said, "The new world of business is the act of storytelling." We all agree that in the year 2020 to now, we have seen how social media is rebranding business and repositioning them, not just for brand imaging, but even for profitability. We now see public service, everyone coming out using social media. So we need to come out to use social media. People need to say stories about how they have experienced Islamic finance and the non-interest financial institution they have used in the country, shared feedback. Wherever you are, I'll give an instance of what happened to me last week. I went to one of my auntie's organization to sell, and there was someone who, he wasn't even a Muslim, and he said, "This is my third time enjoying Mudaraba." So we need such people to keep sharing their stories. We need industry, the NIFI ecosystem, to keep writing, create awareness, drive conferences or webinar, because we need to speak up. I think one of the most beautiful marketing adage that I've seen before is, you don't sell to people in a dark light, because to speak, you need to see their faces. So we need to put our faces out there for everyone to hear us. And like I earlier mentioned, the new world of social media. I mean, sometimes you're in Nigeria, you have friends in the UK, you have friends in Port Harcourt. I mean, I have some people that I've met on social media. We're so close, but we haven't even met yet. Yes. So we need to see business beyond physical. We need to drive business around the use of social media, because it's also an ecosystem on its own. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, new media as it's called, so let's use it as it is. Okay, do you think people still have that sentiment when they hear the word Islamic finance? I mean, back then, I remember most of the time when you say Islamic finance and then you ask people, what is this banking about, or what's this finance about, and then they tell you, is that not the finance for the Muslim people? So I'm just wondering, do people still have that sentiment when you talk to people, or when you pitch your idea, or when you, as a salesperson, when you talk to people, do you still see that sentiment around them regarding Islamic finance?
I would say largely yes. And there'll always be sentiment when there is low level of awareness. So it is very expected. With response to the previous research work that I had mentioned, the researcher used the Twitter space, because Twitter is the avenue where people have discussions and all of that. And the sentiment was way higher. It was 24%. But I always say that sentiments are very beautiful, because sentiments are problems, and problems are where the best businesses are being bettered from. All we just need to do is keep educating people. That's how we'd reduce this level of sentiment. But yes, I have seen a lot of people come to say, "Oh, isn't that the bank that is only for Muslims?" And most times I respond using data. I remember when, I think that was 6 years ago, one of the non-interest banks in Nigeria did a market survey of their existing customers, and with confidentiality though. And they had more of their customers who weren't even Muslims. Right. Like I earlier mentioned, the customer I met at my auntie's office was not a Muslim too. Like I always say, sentiment is always created from lack of knowledge or exposure. Right. But when we continue to educate people, reduce the level of sentiments. I remember when I wanted to join an NIFI institution, then I thought maybe I wasn't going to dress in a certain way and all of that. Then I just remember that all what just guides our business activities is in line with Sharia compliance, in line with using the modality of Islamic finance, but that doesn't stop us from our own well-being and driving the general economics.
Right. It's so ironical that each time I talk to people about sentiment, and then they say people have that sentiment towards Islamic finance, but then at the end of the day, most of the people that patronize Islamic finance like that, are quick to patronize Islamic finance, are the Christians. So, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, it's ironical, but then it is what it is. So, talking about barrier and breaking barrier, how can, operators and regulators play a crucial role in breaking that barrier, especially for stakeholders, so that the public can also consume the system of finance better?
Thank you for your question. I would respond using my experience. All sectors in Nigeria do have regulators, and I think and I know that most regulators are pushing new media because it's a form of pro-business. It's a way of driving inclusivity and inclusion and also brand awareness. I don't say that there are barriers, but I do know that we have compliance. For example, for we in the non-interest financial institutions, all we need to do is just to stick to the guidelines of the ACE. So at the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is our parent bank, we have a unit called the ACE Committee. What they do is to make sure that our policies are in line with Islamic finance modalities, with the Sharia compliance unit of theirs, I think. Right. And what they need us to do in new media is just to work in line with the modalities. Like, we don't need to talk about loans because we are loan free. We are an ethical bank and we're also an ethical ecosystem. So we need to speak right in line with ethics. But are the regulators wanting us to make the new media market very accessible? Very yes, very, very yes. Because I'm sure you'll agree with me that between year 2020 to date, you'd see a lot of non-interest financial institutions now writing, now having seminars, now having conferences. All of this is to push the new media and make the market bigger and easier for new entry, fostering knowledge. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Halima, for that. Thank you for that brief and enlightening conversation. I mean, it's always nice having you here because it's an eye opener for us and then for you. So thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We've heard it from Halima Sliman. I mean, she was able to make us understand and to make you understand that Islamic finance is not just segregated to the Muslim populace, but rather even the non-Muslims are the ones quick to adopt the system of banking. And for those of you that have, minimal knowledge of Islamic finance, I mean, those people that we interviewed some time ago, the people that attended to this survey and analysis, I hope you're able to understand that Islamic finance has a lot of benefits to treat you and your loved ones. Well, with that, I say, don't forget to keep it to date with us next week on the program. Follow us on all our social media platforms displayed on the screen. Thank you for watching, and I am Rahma Saeed Muhammad.